Hello everyone, welcome back to the best place for the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. Welcome back everyone. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. I certainly did. My sporting action kind of started off a little bit early on Thursday afternoon. I was in attendance at the Major League Baseball opening day game here in Miami, Florida at Lone Depot Park. It was Mets versus Marlins. An excellent game. It was a very enjoyable watch. I'll get to that story in a little bit because I believe that a legislation that had so many people upset, a new rule in place in the MLB that had so many fired up is going to save the game. But that's for a later story on this show. Let's start off with the story that deserves all of our love and respect this Monday morning. LSU women's basketball team, they are national champions. And so that concludes the March Madness tournament for the women. And like I said, they deserve all of our respect. They have been so gritty, so passionate this entire run. I feel like we've heard about them all throughout the entire year. They were one of the more dominant teams, and they came together when it mattered most. And unfortunately, on social media, one of the bigger stories that I feel like is overshadowing all of this is Angel Reece, because everyone is talking about when she threw up the 5 fingers at the end of the game, and she said, "You can't see me," in response to Caitlin Clark, who earlier in the game did the exact same thing. And, there's a lot of criticism saying, oh, the game was almost already over. It's not good sportsmanship. It's classless. And I find there to be a tremendous double standard in sports when it comes to women's sports and men's sports. In men's sports, we love for our men to be passionate. We love for them to, we always encourage sportsmanship, but we like it when there's a little bit of feud, a little bit of aggressiveness, a little bit of a passion and showing that you are the better team, the better player. We love those kinds of things. When players show off how clutch they are, and Steph Curry, when he shoots a 3 and then he turns around before it goes in, we love those things. We clip them, they become highlights, and they live on famously forever. And for some reason this Monday morning, there is a tremendous amount of criticism against Angel Reece for throwing up those 5 fingers. And, it wasn't a crude gesture, was not anything, any bad words on national television, if that was everybody's fear. She was just being ultra competitive in a moment where she was about to realize her ultimate goal as a college basketball player. And a lot of people don't know her story. Her freshman year was cut short because she suffered a foot fracture in just her 4th game of the season. Ended up having 2 up and down years at that school before deciding that she was going to transfer. She committed to LSU, and a year later, she's a national champion. We should appreciate those kinds of stories, love them, and give them their respect and their attention. So I'm glad in her post-game press conference, she kind of addressed the double standard, and she said, "All year I was criticized about who I was. I'm too hood. I'm too ghetto. Y'all told me that all year. But when other people do it, y'all don't say anything. This was for the girls that look like me. It was bigger than me tonight." Angel Reece after becoming a national champion. So I'm glad she addressed the elephant in the room. We love it when our stars address the thing that's on everybody's mind but nobody wants to say. So I'm glad she addressed it there, and I'm glad she went after those critics because it was very malfounded. I loved Angel Reece's story this entire tournament, and I'm going to be honest, college basketball was not something that I kept up with a ton this year until it was drawing closer to March Madness. But I feel like the LSU women's team always had a little bit of a target on their back and some spotlight because they were doing so well. And it was just a couple games ago when LSU's women's team was playing my hometown Miami Hurricanes women's basketball team when Zamiah Smith drew a ring out of a black marker on Angel Reece's finger as they were moments away from beating Miami. I thought that was an excellent show of confidence, if nothing else. And it shows you we love it when our players and men's teams and men's sports are clutch. Why don't we appreciate it when women call their shot like that? So I think there's a tremendous double standard. I'm glad that she has realized the ultimate success, that she has come so far, and that she has completed her goals in college. I'm not sure what's next for her, whether it's the WNBA, whether she has some years of eligibility left in college, but make no mistake, Angel Reece is going to be a living legend for the rest of women's basketball history, especially at the college level. And we wish her the best of luck because, truthfully, she has been through a lot. She has overcome it. She's been a team player, and she is just living up to her hype, and she is living her best life as she wins a national championship. So I understand that there are those of you who, watching this show, who have watched it for quite some time, think that I hate baseball. And quite frankly, it's the total opposite. It was one of the first sports that I ever fell in love with. It was actually the first sport that I ever learned to commentate in. And I played it growing up. I loved watching it. I loved A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez. It was a full circle moment when years later I got to interview him in person. I love baseball. I just understand that the sport has been dying when it comes to ratings and TV revenue, and something needed to change to make this game more digestible, because amongst the problems that the MLB has, the games were too long, and that's no secret. People knew it, and unfortunately, baseball has always been known as America's pastime. They don't get with the times. They don't change the rules as quickly as the NBA or the NFL does, and they're very reluctant to change. There is a little bit of an elitist mindset in old baseball in the sense that we don't have to change. We've been around for hundreds of years, and we're going to continue to persevere and be the same game. You can't. And you can blame the TikTok generation of my own, but the fact is, older audiences as well are not watching 3.5-hour baseball games. Something needed to change. And in a game that is not measured by a clock or by quarters or by halves, it was always going to be a hard thing to do. Luckily, baseball found the solution. They implemented a pitch clock years ago in the minor leagues. They tested it out, and now they have brought it to Major League Baseball. And there was a lot of criticism during training camp and during those off-season games that they play, spring training leading up to baseball season. And let me tell you, I was present for opening day at the Lone Depot Park, Miami Marlins versus the Mets, who looked like an excellent team, even if they weren't playing their best baseball. And let me tell you, that game was the most fun I've had at a pro sporting event in a long time. I had great seats. I had a view of the batter's mound of home plate. It was an excellent watch. And I realized time was flying by as I sat down, and I was like, oh my God, this is not your father's baseball game. This is a new league of baseball. And it was moving so quickly because of the pitch clock. It makes the game more digestible. It makes it a smoother watch. It's a better watch on TV. And you keep fans entertained with the constant action. There's not these massive wait times or massive lumps where nothing's going on and it feels like it's dead air. When radio hosts say, oh, you can't have dead air and you can't have silence for 15 seconds. That's what the game of baseball felt like for the last 5 years. Too much gap in action. The NFL is quick. Yeah, you have 30 seconds in between each play, but you have explosive plays. You have big-time plays. You have very fun offensive-driven plays. That wasn't the case in baseball. Offense drives leagues. You're going to see more stolen bases this year. You're going to see more home runs, and the ratings speak for themselves. This opening day with the pitch clock has saved Major League Baseball forever. Major League Baseball's opening day was the most watched day in MLB TV history. That's not the only stat. The shortest game was Detroit versus Tampa Bay. It was 2 hours and 4 minutes. The average game is now 26 minutes shorter on opening day than it was last year. Here's another one. MLB opening night audience grows. The ESPN viewership for the night game on opening day was up 20% in viewership from last year's Reds-Braves opener. Chicago's win delivered the largest traditional opening day audience since the Giants-Dodgers in 2018, 1.97 million people. Earlier in the day, MLB Network averaged 348,000 viewers for Giants-Yankees, up 7% from the Brewers-Cubs game just a year ago. Ladies and gentlemen, you may not like it. You may have thought it was strange. You may have thought, oh, they're trying to speed up the game. You can't do that. The MLB implemented a pitch clock, and it has saved baseball. Everyone loves it way more. The games are quicker. They're more digestible. This year, only 5 of the 15 opening day games were above 3 hours. That will start to come down even more as pitchers get used to the pitch clock. It's gonna create a lot more tension at the plate because hey, the pitcher's going to have some mind games going with the batter. He's never going to throw at the same second. He's never going to wind up at the same time. There's going to be a lot of variety and mind games being played from that pitcher's mound. It's going to make baseball even more exciting. It is going to become an offensive-driven league, which it needs to be if it wants to succeed in 2023, where, whether for good or for bad, society has a very short attention span. And when there's so many sports out there, more than ever so, on TV, on cable, on streaming services, You need to get with the times. And baseball, to their credit, has done exactly that. So over the weekend, a report was released into the NFL Twitter sphere that got people talking. And I certainly am looking closely at this story because I've mentioned it on the show. I am very interested in this particular player. Several NFL scouts reportedly believe there's no shot Hendon Hooker makes it out of the first round. Hooker has privately met so far with the Texans, Colts, Giants, Titans, and Buccaneers. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is something to keep an eye out on. And I privately believe, in my heart of hearts, that Hendon Hooker might be the biggest steal in the 2023 NFL draft because everything I've heard about him, everything I've seen from him, everything that he has told us has been so reassuring. And, I first caught attention of Hendon Hooker like everyone else did, the majority of us, when he, with the Tennessee Volunteers, beat Alabama. And that was a big moment, right? But something that caught my attention actually happened after the season when Hendon Hooker went on Pat McAfee's show when Pat was doing the Super Bowl Radio Row, and he had Hendon Hooker there live. And Hendon Hooker alluded to something that, I'm going to be honest, I know a lot about sports, but I don't know if this is the norm, but it doesn't seem like it. Hendon Hooker, in that interview with Pat McAfee, told us that he's been watching NFL film for about 2 years. I don't know if that's a normal practice for a quarterback who thinks that they're going to be going into the NFL draft, if that's just the way they prepare behind closed doors, and this is the first time I'm hearing about it, but to me, that is news. Hendon Hooker, who is so great, who has been so accurate, who has been so show-stopping as a player in college, has on top of all of that been watching NFL film for over 2 years. That is incredibly impressive, and we should be paying more attention to that story. So, Hendon Hooker, let's take a look at some of the stats and some of the things that we like about Hendon Hooker. Well, it may surprise you to know, Hendon Hooker has the highest total QBR of any of the top 5 quarterbacks in this year's NFL draft. When he was speaking to media during the combine, I love this soundbite. They were asking him and almost prying and, trying to poke the bear, saying, a lot of people say that when they watch your film, you don't go through your progressions. Why is that? And Hendon Hooker, not being too pompous, not being too hostile, simply responded to the question by joking around, saying, it's not my fault nobody could cover my receivers, giving compliments to his team, dishing out the respect and the overall praise that it seems he could be receiving. And of course, the question was not meant to be taken like that. The question was trying to poke the bear, saying, hey, a lot of people say you're not making your progressions. What do you say about that? It was not a question that was meant to be taken in a kind way, but he did, and he turned it around, and you love to see that from your quarterback at the podium. He reminds me of Dak Prescott in the sense that I have not heard him say anything that I find to be wrong. And I've criticized Dak Prescott in the past, but what is something that I always tell you, I think he's a great person, and I think he's excellent at the podium. Always says the right thing, gives the credit to his teammates, takes the blame, and I love that. Here, Hendon Hooker is dishing out what seems to be respect towards his team and a lot of praise. So, his qualities. He's accurate, he's got a big arm, he's got moxie, and he's 6'4". And that's important because people say, quarterbacks are getting smaller. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson was small. Drew Brees was small. No. There are outliers who succeed. But in my opinion, we have a prototype quarterback height that I love. And I think it's between 6'3" and 6'4". And there's not many quarterbacks who fall into that category, but Hendon Hooker does. He is the prototypical size that you need to succeed at quarterback. Now, the one thing that I will say I don't like about Hendon Hooker is when I watch his Florida tape against the Gators this year, he was initiating contact way too much. When he would scramble, he would not slide. He would go in for the contact. He didn't try to evade the guys. He didn't try to slide. He didn't try to go out of bounds. He was trucking and moving forward like he was a running back, and that scares me. I don't want my quarterback doing that. We love Josh Allen and his big size and the way that he runs downfield like a powerhouse, and he's like a train that cannot be stopped going down the rails. But every single time that he goes down, Bills fans, they hold their breath for a second. And he's always gotten up, but I feel like there's a day when he's unfortunately not going to. And you don't wish injury upon anyone, but we saw this with Big Ben. We saw this with Cam Newton. These big body, hyper-athletic quarterbacks who think they are invincible, and all it takes is one hit, one wrong moment or tackle, and it proves you wrong, and it shows you, and it brings you back to reality here. you are not invincible. The NFL in many players' minds, besides standing for no fun league, also stands for not for long. And I've heard that from a lot of former NFL players and current NFL players. And it's something that I want the quarterback to be mindful of. Hey, I appreciate that you're a playmaker. I don't want you slipping and sliding right into other players. Go down, go out of bounds, avoid the contact. Now, according to Around the NFL, Hendon Hooker told Omar Ruiz that he is, quote, ahead of schedule and focused on longevity, which is important to me. I like that. But the one thing that concerns me is that tape against the Florida Gators when it felt like so many times he scrambled and he initiated contact. He did not evade it. He did not try to get away from it. That concerns me. I need my quarterback to stay safe and healthy. I don't need him to also play the role of the running back. That's why you pay the running back. That's why you pay the offensive line. I don't need my quarterback in Hendon Hooker putting his career and his time on the field on the line because he is trying to give us a first down or trying to put us in a better position. I appreciate it, but it's not necessary. You know, Joe Burrow, who I love, who's an excellent pocket passer, got injured while he was in the pocket, ironically. It wasn't even like he was scrambling. But those are the kinds of injuries that we see in the NFL today that, you know, the hits aren't as hard as they used to be. But those hits are devastating when they do happen now. We saw so many situations throughout the year that I don't even have to mention that I'm sure come to mind, including 2 years ago when Joe Burrow's knee got blown out, and I believe by the Washington football team. Those are scary plays. You do not want your quarterback, your franchise star, to run into those issues when you plan on paying him $200+ million. And so that's something that's very important to me. I hope that Hendon Hooker can learn to evade contact, but otherwise, I think he's the prototypical quarterback, and I think he's going to be so good for so long if he can stay healthy. I really do believe that Hendon Hooker is the steal of the 2023 NFL Draft. So it's no secret that on this show, I have been very critical of Bill Belichick. And, you know, I think he is clueless when it comes to the offensive side of the football. I think he showed you that. It doesn't take me to tell you when this past season he made a former defensive coordinator and a former defensive-minded head coach who did not succeed. He made that guy the offensive coordinator for his young quarterback and Mac Jones, who needed to be nurtured and developed and taught properly this season. And he did the total opposite. And we've heard other reports. We know Mac Jones was fed up with the decision, and we know that Bill Belichick has made some awful decisions on the offensive side of the ball ever since Tom Brady left. And to me, it proves that Tom Brady was the deciding factor in so many wins that the Patriots had towards the end of his tenure with the team. But I still consider Bill Belichick, to his credit, to be a defensive genius, and I think still today, Bill Belichick is probably the best defensive-minded head coach in the NFL. And this story kind of proves it. So over the weekend, we heard some reporting that J.C. Jackson, after his first season with the Los Angeles Chargers, he was injured. And apparently there is no timetable on when he will return. Brandon Staley was talking about how we've tried to look at training camp and what it's going to look like moving forward, and we'll do our purest evaluation at that point. But at the end of the day, this just shows you Bill Belichick is a very smart man when it comes to the offensive side of the football. He knows what he's talking about. For years, one of the praises of Bill Belichick was, man, he knows when to move off players. He moves on from stars, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and their career plummets into the unknown. We never hear from them again. And Bill Belichick made a career of trading players who were stars and then seemingly became awful or regressed tremendously whenever they went to their next location or their next team. And I find it very interesting. Just a couple of years ago, we were talking about J.C. Jackson and how he needed to get paid and the Patriots should pay him and that he absolutely deserved it. And funny enough, now J.C. Jackson is injured. And J.C. Jackson, good for him. I'm all for players getting theirs. He got a massive contract, $82.5 million from the Chargers, multi-year deal, long-term deal. But this kind of shows you what happens. In 4 seasons with the Patriots, J.C. Jackson was paid less than $6 million total. In J.C. Jackson's first year with the Chargers, he was paid $28 million. Bill Belichick got the best years of J.C. Jackson's career and then shipped him off and let him walk, essentially, and is not paying him now the big money that he earned when he was with the Patriots, and instead is letting someone else pay the tab on an aging and injury-riddled player. Let me tell you, that speaks to Bill Belichick's genius. And looking back, there's countless examples of Bill Belichick moving on from a defensive player who we thought was a star, and him being right, him winning that divorce, him showing the world, hey, I got the best years out of this player's career, and I know their time is up. And he was right 99.9% of the time. I think the one time that we can confidently say Bill Belichick messed up, I think the biggest miss of Bill Belichick's career in that aspect was probably when he let Chandler Jones walk. He told Chandler Jones essentially, hey, you're free to go. I think the best days of your career are past you. And Chandler Jones is one of the only guys in Patriots history who showed Bill Belichick, hey, I'm still successful and I'm still going to be great at my next team wherever I do get paid. And credit to Chandler Jones, he has had an amazing NFL career. But this just shows you, Chandler Jones was an outlier. For the most part, Bill Belichick has always been a great predictor of knowing, hey, this guy's played his best days for us. Bill always got the best days out of his defensive players. He knew when to move off. He never paid them too much. And although it may seem like, we have resentment for Bill Belichick, why didn't you pay that guy? Why didn't you give him what he deserved? Most of the guys still got it elsewhere, but Bill was not going to pick up the tab on aging players whose best days were behind him. And then in that aspect, Bill Belichick was right. We were wrong. So I've got to say, I'm really excited about this new segment on the Benjamin Cure Show. I've wanted to incorporate guests for months. I thought, hey, maybe I'll get into it after football season when things start to die down. And I feel like this is the perfect guest to get us started. He's been checking in on me for a while. He's been very interested in coming on, and I am so excited to have him live for an interview today. So let's get right into it. He is a wide receiver and long jumper at Florida Memorial University. He was the first FMU student athlete, and he is from a city that we have all come to learn of, adore, and love in the sports world, Akron, Ohio. Please help me welcome Christian Edgerson. Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling blessed and everything. I got practice in about an hour or so. I'm just excited to meet you. And I've been persistent and consistent to meet you and have this conversation. And I'm so glad I'm on the show. For real. You're probably one of the best out there, young and upcoming, broadcasters in the world. So just keep on going and let's get this started.
I really appreciate it, Christian. And like you said, let's dive right into it. So you played college football for an HBCU. How important was that to you? Was it something that you strived for? I know a lot of high school athletes say, I want to play for a big brand or I want to stay close to home. Was it important to you to play for an HBCU?
Yes, it really was. I wanted to get into a different element. I was a suburban kid living with my mom, and I have a twin brother, of course. So I grew up living in good, nice and just good places. And going to HBCU is different. It's all the fun is not as there. It's like a big PWI school, a big school that funds so much money. And I wanted to come here and really get the difference, and they love it here. The students love it here. The faculty, it's like a small family, and that's why I wanted to come here, because I'm not a big time guy. I love being in small environments for sure.
That's awesome to hear. And, I can kind of relate to all the things you're talking about, the passionate groups, the fans, the actual student body. A couple of years back, I actually interviewed a big-time HBCU grad, Titus Howard, who's now an offensive lineman in the NFL for the Houston Texans. Yes, and he shared that same passion that you're talking about. So it seems to be a common thread at HBCUs.
Yes, sir.
So I know you're graduating in just 1 month, and you were telling me right before we hit record that you've got some big things planned. So tell me, what are you going to miss the most about FMU and college football there? And looking forward, what's next for you?
Really, the one thing I'm really going to miss is just honestly coming out here and handling my business like I did. My goal was to come out here and get my name out in the world as a football player and a jumper, a dual athlete. And that was my goal. And I feel like I've done that. And I feel like this is just the beginning. And I feel like my next move, and I'm transferring to the University of Cincinnati to try to reach out my goals as well as football and track. And I feel like going there, especially being back home, and I feel like I told my family, it's the cherry on the top. that it's going to feel good because I can have my family around me. They can come to some games. I'm going to school with my cousin. Kind of, I call him my brother, but he's my cousin. So he can come and watch me at jumping and football. And it's just going to be, to end my college career at Cincinnati, it's going to be the best feeling because my family, that's what it's about.
That's awesome. Very glad to hear it. If that's the formal announcement on the internet, there you go, everyone. Christian Edgerson will be playing college football at Cincinnati next season. We're all going to be rooting for you, and we're looking very much forward to that. So I want to get a little bit into the NIL stuff, the stories that everybody talks about. And I think your situation is really unique. You played with an HBCU. You were the first student athlete in your school's history. You were a dual sport athlete as well. But you were already kind of past the midway point of your college football career when NIL finally came into effect. So did you get to reap the benefits of that legislation, or did you have any teammates who did? Tell me about that.
I did not, unfortunately, but I was not a big NIL deal in person. Like I said, I'm a small time guy. I like to just play football. That's where my heart is. I'm not playing this game to get money or get revenues. I'm playing this game. I got this far because I just love it. I love the sport. I have jump practice, actually training in about an hour. I love to do this. It's not about the money to me. That's why transferring to Cincinnati, it's really not about, I want to compete against the best, but as well as it's my family. I got little nephews and nieces that I want to inspire, that really, like, I called my nephew one day. He's like, Christian, are you coming home? I'm like, I promise you, Kate, his name's Caden. I'm coming home. I miss him. I want to see him. And I want him to come and experience his college life because I want him to be inspired.
Oh, I really love to hear that. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. Christian, you're a family man. Clearly, people from Cincinnati who are watching this are going to love that you're going to be closer to home. I'm very excited for you. Last thing here, if this is your formal introduction to University of Cincinnati students, boosters, coaches, alumni who are watching this, who now know that you're going to be transferring, tell me, what do you want the University of Cincinnati to know about Christian Edgerson?
I just want them to know that I'm coming to compete academically as well as athletically. I'm coming there as a media production and joining that program. I got accepted. And that's one of my main focuses. That's why I'm talking to you. I want to broadcast. I want to talk. I want to be on podcasts. That's what I feel like I love, and I love sports. I love athletes. I was watching the game last night of the women's basketball. They're these women out here, they're so good now. They're so, like, they've been good, but now we're really getting on the mainstream because they're so talented. And I feel like athletically, it's guaranteed. I'm coming to compete and to win. That's what I want to come. I'm coming to Cincinnati as a winner.
Christian, I love that. One of our earlier stories in the show was about women's basketball, so I'm sure people will be excited to hear you talk about that and hype them up. And let me tell you, you're very well spoken. You sound like you have a good head on your shoulders. Cincinnati definitely has a winner in the broadcasting booth and on the football field. Christian, thank you so much for your time. We're going to have to find a way to get you back on another day when we're not so busy, when you don't have so many obligations, so we can really talk sports. But thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, we'll see you next time. I appreciate you. Hey, have a blessed rest of your day and week. We'll definitely stay in contact.
Same to you, Christian. Appreciate it.
Hey, have a good day.
And with that, we conclude this week's episode of the Benjamin Cure Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you appreciated all of our great stories and content today. To see more clips, make sure to head over to Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Ben Cure Show to watch some of the best moments of our best takes on this show. Once again, I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show, and I'll see you all next week.